Attention, everyone. Do we have a quorum?
Yes.
We have a quorum. Okay, let's do introductions then. Call the meeting to order. It's Zone 9. Zone 9's been around for about 50 years now and was established for the purpose of studying rainfall and runoff and identify drainage problems and identify ways of correcting the drainage problems. I feel fortunate that I've seen the whole life of Zone 9 since the day it was founded.
Wow.
My boss, Dave Romero, was the one who worked with the county with Milne, and they established this, and as well with Ken Schwartz, they got the issue on the ballot, and people voted to approve Zone 9 and establish it, and then you set up a tax rate for it and all that. And when Prop 13 came along, it changed the way it's funded, but it's still funded and through the county. And so we can go on ahead making our plans for correcting flood problems. Anyway, I'm Wayne Peterson. I'm chairman of Zone 9, and I am the member at large for the county.
I'm Brendan Clark, supervising water resources engineer with County Public Works, secretary. Okay.
Joey Style, County Public Works Program Manager for the Water Resources Division.
Troy Barnhart, engineering staff of the county.
Happy Borland.
Member, community member, Reese Jansen, community member, 173 Buckley Road.
Brian Nelson, City Public Works and Vice Chair.
Chelsea Moore, City Public Works, Supervising Civil Engineer. Jeanette Andrews, and at large. Wayne.
She's my back.
I got you back. Christine Mulholland, City at large.
Maybe Jones County Public Works.
Freddie Audi, city biologist.
Michelle Shorsman, the City Council
Thank
Liaison.
you.
And last but not least,
Lucia Pullman, Sustainability and Natural Resource Analyst.
Welcome. That takes care of introductions and roll call. Moving on to item 2, the approval of the February 8th minutes. Does anybody have any corrections or additions to those minutes?
Move the minutes.
Correct. Anybody have corrections or additions?
I didn't hear it.
Well, I'm
Okay,
waiting for
sorry.
some.
Okay, you're gonna call for.
I do
Wait,
have,
you want it.
I have a question.
Oh.
Kathy, maybe you'll correct me on that. Kim Stickler or Sticker?
Oh, Stickler.
Okay, so her name is misspelled in the minutes.
Ah. Good call. Stickler.
That's correct.
Can do.
And I'd also like to refer to item 5 on where I asked about the repair of Buckley Road to get rid of some of the ponding, and I'd like to compliment whoever did it. There's a big patch out there in the road where one of the big ponds was. It's full of asphalt now. Just thank you, whoever did it, county or city or the developer. I don't know, but
It's done.
there's new black stuff out there. Good. Okay, now I'll take your motion.
I move the minutes as corrected.
Is there a second?
second.
Minutes moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? It's approved. Thank you. Item number 3 is officer elections, and I'll turn this over to the staff to run this part of the meeting.
Yep, just kind of our annual election of officers, and just want to check to see if it's anything specific here. I think that's basically it. So I'll let Christine take it away.
I would like to ask Wayne, are you going to stay on this committee, and would you be willing to continue serving as our chair if nominated and elected?
Yes.
I nominate Wayne to be continue being our chair.
I second it. I'm not a voting member. Gotta keep behind you.
I need an actual second, sorry. But I was just thinking, with Wayne here. Okay, thank you, Brian. Okay.
We also need a vice chair.
I can continue to be vice chair.
Who is vice chair now?
Me.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
Will you continue being vice chair if
Yes.
nominated? I nominate you.
I'll second that one.
Vote on this.
Yes,
Ask for the voter, do we make me do it?
you can do it.
I don't go way out now.
All in favor of the motion to elect these two gentlemen as chairman and vice chairman?
Did you mistake who we nominated, gentlemen? No. Oh, okay. Go ahead, sorry.
Say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passed. Okay, we continue to serve. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I please nominate our current secretary to remain in this position for the next year as well?
I move the nomination closed. All
Aye.
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Welcome.
You call it.
Maybe we need to update these bylaws. That one is really weird, so.
I like it myself.
That was smooth.
That was Clinton Owens' idea. He always wanted to be secretary. Okay, item number 4 is a presentation of the final East Fork study and consider actions on. This is the study. I think you've all seen it. Copies have been sent to you in emails.
Sorry, I gotta finish my notes.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I thought it was a pretty good study. I've made some comments to Brendan about some of the presentations in there and asked him to change some details and notes to make it clearer for the layperson reading it. Because some of the pictures weren't clearly stated where they were taken from, what they were taken of. And were kind of confusing, at least for me, and I know the area. And then some of the charts, maps showed soil cut types and stuff like that, and just placed numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and didn't say what the 1, 2, 3, 4 were, like, some kind of qualifications for them. So, and Brendan said he would go ahead and edit the documents to take care of some of those things.
I haven't seen a hard copy, but I looked at it online, and the maps themselves were very difficult to read. Any numbers, names of anything online were not clear, could not read it, didn't know what the roads were, the creeks. I mean, it was not clear online, so I don't know if it's clearer. And
No.
hard copy,
That's the problem, like this one here. It has a land use hydro group CDX, and what is CDX?
well, further on when there were many.
Yeah, it just keeps going all the way through
It
like
was
that.
difficult to see and to read and to know what exactly what areas we're talking about.
Honestly, I agree with that. I think the map should have the roads labeled on every single one of them to a readable scale. Because for me, it's where the roads are and where the creeks are, it's what we're talking about, right? So
Yeah,
having
very,
those shown where the bridges are on each map could be helpful too.
yeah, it was just kind of pictures of blobs out there in that area. What it was referring to was difficult. I thought that the written analysis of that comment were
And the maps
Good.
without any street names on them, just, if you know the areas, it's fine, you can figure it out, but a few names would help.
Yeah, and then the model like had catchment areas. It wasn't really sure where.
Yeah,
those
where
lined
the
up
boundaries
with.
or what is,
Yeah.
yeah, I know all about that was my concern. It was interesting to read and learn some stuff, but at the same time, needs to be clearer for the public and for anybody, actually, I think.
Yeah, no, that I don't disagree about the maps. I was thinking beforehand, we could connect offline about producing some higher res images, if that's possible or not, but all right. Yeah. So,
Hopeful.
yeah.
Bobby Joe will take care of you.
Now, if
she's
you
in-
blow it up
Bobby
this
Joe's in
side, then
Central
we
IT
can
now.
probably read it.
Um, All right, well, yeah, I definitely understand that, and I, like Wayne had said, email me some comments, and I'm gonna take down some other questions and comments, and might have like a, you know, at least at a minimum, a like side letter, side memo to answer some of these and comments and questions. And then as far as editing the maps, that might be on a map by map basis. So, but I got the notes down, take a look at it. So I think with that, I'm just going to launch into presentation of the study. And so kind of follows the organization of the study itself. So I'm just going to quickly review the background, and the goals of the study. Troy will review some of the methods that went into the technical side of the modeling, and then kind of go over at a high level the findings, which were organized in the historical conditions, what we've called the near future conditions. I'll define that. And we did look at some potential improvements and kind of what, from a qualitative standpoint, what could potentially be done to further improve the flooding in the area. So with that, where are we here? This, as we know, it's an area of known frequent flooding that has weird, if you can all see my mouse, has weird city county jurisdictions. The East Fork goes from the county to the city, back to the county, and in some areas back to the city, and then back into county jurisdiction. Throw in the airport in here, where you, as the last bullet point kind of refers to, the waterway management plan even deferred to an obsolete storm drain management master plan of the airport specific plan, just highlighting the weirdness of this area. So we, knowing that is another reason why we went in and did our own look beyond all these boundaries study. We also know that in the recent years, there's been multiple large-scale planned projects and completed projects, both in the city and county areas, that we wanted to take a look at again from that higher level. So the background and goals of the study were to understand the causes or singular cause of the historical flooding. So this would be the historical condition, to analyze the current conditions with recently constructed projects. This is what's the near future condition. So this includes Avila Ranch development conditions, as well as the Buckley Road extension inputted into the model, and then to analyze potential regional solutions to reduce flooding at Buckley Road. And I'll go ahead and turn over to Troy for a moment to talk about kind of some of the technical side.
Yeah, thanks, Bruno. So for this study, we pursued a very similar technical approach to what the water management plan used. And that was creating a separate hydrologic and hydraulic models. It's still the same software that was used to make the water management plan 20 so years ago, but all the software has been brought up to date. And some of those recent updates, especially the hydraulic software, allow much more accurate modeling of flood behavior in the areas that we most care about. The image on the right side is velocity during high flows on a flooding event near the Buckley Road extension area, the confluence of the two creeks. And this level of detail is not something that was possible around the time of the water management plan originally. And this can be informative. We validated the results of the model with photos and videos, both from the floods this year and those previously submitted. And we're going to go to the next slide. The basis of a hydraulic model like this is really important. The topographic information is really key. And so a big effort was put in to get good high resolution topography. So the base layer was 2017 FEMA aerial, basically aerial surveys that were done for the entire county. And then that was corrected at specific locations with ground surveys. All the blue points shown here were survey points where surveyors physically went out there and got elevations. And then for that near future, or existing condition that Brenda mentioned, the development or improvement plans were incorporated into the model, so the Buckley Road extension plans, and then an approximation of the Apple Ranch development impact area.
Can you point out where Buckley Road is there?
Sure.
Yeah, this red line right here is Buckley Road, and this doesn't show the extension, but the extension would come up this way. And this is Tank Farm Creek, East Fork Creek going.
And then the Avila Ranch, is that on which side of
Avila Ranch should be this area.
that whole area
Yeah.
there? Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, just gonna review, now move on to some of the findings and the results of the study. Historical conditions. Thank you for this great photo, Kathy. I went through all her photos. I thought this one captured, what it used to look like the best. And so, pre any, a lot of the development, pre-extension, what was going on. And so some of the findings that resulted in that condition was a very flat lower watershed, which I'll show a photo here or on the next slide. Basically, the watershed starts very steep in the hills and then gets extremely flat. And so when you have water coming off at high speeds, doesn't take a lot of area to move that water, but when it gets flat, water will slow down, and that causes it to widen out and the level to rise because it's moving a lot slower. There's a historic floodplain in the area that's been modified by agricultural activities, before any regulations of anything like that, and in the floodplain, and that affects the flooding. The watershed moisture condition, we're pretty confident to say that this controls the storm flows and the flooding generated. And what I mean by that here, I have this chart here. In the modeling, we generally consider moisture condition is one of three. It's either dry, normal, or wet. And here we went through and analyzed 2 5-year, 10-year, 25-year, 100-year rainfall in a normal soil condition environment produces these flows. These are in cubic feet per second. So obviously more rainfall, higher flow. However, when we do the wet condition, this is what's here on the far right. So a 10-year rainfall, of once every 10-year rainfall on a wet watershed produces about the same flow as a 100-year rainfall in a normal moisture condition watershed. And I think that's something it jives with what we've observed the last few years, where, and especially in January of this year, what didn't feel like an insane amount of rain produced a crazy amount of water and flow and flooding. And I think this modeling in this report confirms that. And then we also looked at the impacts of San Luis Obispo Creek on Buckley Road as well, and I have a picture of that. So here, it's very faint, but you can see in general, if you look across the watershed, so here's the airport, here is Tank Farm Road, here's Buckley Road right here. And water starting out here behind Johnson, makes its way through town and down to here in the study area. And you can see here, it starts off really steep and then just gets really flat. And then over here, this was the sensitivity analysis of if San Luis Obispo Creek is cranking, how much effect does the level of San Luis Obispo Creek have on the flooding being experienced up the East Fork? And you see there is impact, and I'd say it looks like pretty severe impact here near the confluence. So San Luis Obispo Creek is really flowing. They're going to see these effects here on the city property and in the orchard area, and then through the lower part of the stables. But by the time it gets to the upper part of the stables and pet resort, and Buckley Road. This is Buckley Road. There's no impact modeled from the effects of San Luis Obispo Creek on East Fork. So those were the findings of what we call the historical conditions. So, reasons, if you will, why this has just been an area of consistent flooding.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
You go back. So is this really true that all these creeks converge right there?
Yes.
And where is that?
This point is, I believe that's Santa Fe Road by, what's
At
the
Tank
little
Farm in Santa Fe?
tank farm in Santa Fe?
Which flooded this year for like the first time. It closed several times. And that's why. I did not realize.
Yeah, so the airport, yeah, where that little road that goes behind the airport has the weird
Yeah,
one car at a time bridge.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, all of the water, I mean, this is up at Terrace Hill. This is Rigetti Hill, here is Islay Hill. All of that comes to here. Yeah. Okay, and yeah, and I'll just say, putting this together, I also agreed we should hire res maps, so gonna try to work on that. But our findings for the near future conditions, which includes the Buckley Road extension, Avila Ranch grading, and looked at the effects of maintenance, specifically under the bridge at Buckley Road. And I've included just the pictures here, but the main finding was that the flows and the flooding, if you will, generated by the 2-year, 5-year, and 10-year rainfall are modeled to not overtop Buckley Road. It's probably a key finding here in the near future condition modeling. And then, as you'd expect, as the rainfall increases, these are the depths of flow we would expect. Again, this is in a normal moisture condition scenario. So I think, Troy, I'm going to go on a limb here. This 100-year could be similar to a 10-year rainfall on extremely wet conditions. But okay, I got the nod. So that's good. And yeah, and these were, these are the findings, if you will. And about the maintenance, just confirmed the value of cleaning out culverts and bridges. I know it's very logical and very obvious, but we start having blockages in those points. It's really affects the flow and increases the flooding pretty significantly. So yes.
Question. So relative to the January storm, that was a 25-year event?
It was a 25, it was recorded around a 25-year event in the city, like the bigger watershed, but this watershed in particular, it looks like a little bit less rain actually, at least from the gauges, the airport and the gas station. Both of them were lower than a lot of other areas in the city. I pegged this at more like a 10-year rainfall for the eastward, but it corresponded to, I looked at the high waters that I observed out at the Buckley and Batchel intersection. It lined up the best with like our 25-year modeling results.
With the wet soil conditions or normal?
With the normal, that was with the normal.
So we talked about this last time, but the rain gauge at the airport doesn't work.
Yeah.
And
it
I live
was
across the
what it
street,
was.
literally across the street, and I recorded over 50 inches of rain this year.
Yeah, I surveyed like the at the time like a lot of volunteer with rain gauges, and they were frequently recording more.
Yeah.
But I still think that this area got maybe a little less than some other parts of the city, like Irish Hills or something.
So the 25-year map. All right, next up, I'm just going to go highlight a couple of the improvement ideas that were, again, kind of at a very high level, qualitatively looked at, like, could this help? Yes, no. It's kind of the idea. So we looked at 4 different options. This was improving the bridges and culverts, providing upstream storage, improving downstream conveyance, so that's downstream storage, and increasing the channel capacity below Buckley Road. And so just real quick, this is Buckley Road right here. And the extension comes right through here, and here's Tank Farm Road. So one of the points here with the bridge and the culvert improvement was, if all the bridges were raised, elevated, or the culverts upsized, would we see significant improvement to the flooding? And you can see there was a little bit of improvement, but this blue here, bluish purple, is improvement by less than half a foot for 100-year flooding. And then actually, as you can imagine, if you increase the amount of water passing through an area, and I don't know if you all remember last time we discussed this project, we talked about the backwater. So water is filling up East Fork, since it can't drain out as fast as it fills up. And so with more water coming down, you'd end up with a bit of an increase here in the water level. So that's what doing the bridges and culverts, not really a great solution in our opinion. We also looked at upstream storage, which this was the area looked at. So as Kathy pointed out, incredible amount of water converging here on this one point in this one area. So what would happen if we were able to, let's just say, bought a bunch of property and put in off-stream storage? What kind of effects would that have? And pretty decent positive effects on the 100-year water level. The floodplain would be lowered up to about a foot or so along the East Fork. So no effects here for Tank Farm Creek, but would reduce flooding down East Fork. And I don't have a slide for it, but this doing downstream storage, no effect. So didn't even bother including a picture on that one.
Question about that.
Yeah.
On north of Tank Farm, there used to be beautiful wetlands there that were, inviolable. But then I got all dug up for some reason, in spite of the fact that they were supposed to be preserved. And even with these rains, they haven't been refilled yet. Is there any possibility of sending that water over north of Tank Farm to where those deep wetlands are that have not refilled in this rain? And they were killed, and before they were covered with netting to protect birds from getting into the oil there. And now they're supposedly renovating all of that area. They've dug out huge amount, but the wetlands haven't even filled up. Can we get the water pushed over to the deeper wetland areas there, and a little bit where the old tanks were? I know there was some discussion of that in the study. They come to that again, but
Which area are you?
where's Tank Farm?
Right there, all the circles are.
Yeah, so right
So
there.
here's Tank Farm Road.
Yeah, so up there where the big one, just north of that, near Tank Farm, just right off of Tank Farm, all of that wetland there.
Where there's water now, at least.
There's some water there now, yeah, it looks like they put in sprinklers or something, trying to bring water back after they dug it all out. I don't know what.
To irrigate the mitigation plantings, the sprinklers.
Yeah, so mitigation, whatever happened over there, years ago, they said that was never gonna happen, then it did happen. I'm not involved, so I don't know. But it just looks like crap now. It's not a wetlands anymore, and I thought that they should have been protected, and since they're not, maybe there's some way to use that area to push more water over there when we do have rains. I'm not sure. That's just something that seemed like it was nearby where there's too much water.
Okay.
Can it be piped over?
I'd rather see that development there.
It wasn't supposed to be any development at all. It was supposed to be protected wetlands for that, and that on both sides of the Tank Farm there. All of that was.
I think the elevation is challenging from where we would pick up that Santa Fe Road
Mhm.
and then have huge pump and pipe to be able to get over to where the wetlands are now. I think the topography out there doesn't lend itself to that.
Yeah, okay.
Plus, we've got a big sewer line that comes in and drains.
Well, that's important, yeah.
Yeah, so with this, the county is currently working with Chevron on permitting of the latter parts of their grading, remediation and habitat restoration right now. And I'll tell you that for similar reasons that Freddie said, it's not really feasible to move water from East Fork Creek to effectively to Tank Farm Creek, because that area already drains down through Avila Ranch and the like. And that's already capacity constrained. You can't move more water in the other direction, create more problems. However, a benefit, although, so the area that was suggested by the consultant as this, or, you know, hypothetical detention basin is the area right here along the northeast side of East Fork. And as part of the remediation and restoration that Chevron's doing, hopefully this year, they'll be reconnecting this historic oxbow that was cut off by the old Chevron berm 100 years ago or so. And although that won't operate as a true detention basin or like, it will actually provide some benefit to the flooding downstream, because you'll be opening up more area for water to be temporarily stored up there.
Thank you. Now, there's a retention basin right here. And I watched it this whole year with all the rain, and it never filled up. And it's right when you come out Hoover, and then you're gonna turn left on Santa Fe, it's right to your right, and then the runway is right over here. There's a retention basin there. And it really never got much water in it at all, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's part of the airport's drainage system. County drainage requirements for projects like that are extremely conservative. And it's a detention basin, so it does bleed out to East Fork, just at a certain
Oh,
rate.
so it
only
goes
fills up
somewhere.
with the difference, exactly.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But
So it's metered out.
it's metered out,
Yeah.
yeah, and I would hope you'd never see it full, because that makes.
It's not cool. Yeah. Okay.
All right, so I'd expect we could see, I don't know what kind of improvements, maybe the Chevron will have some modeling, or if they're reconnecting some old oxbows, we could see some improvements in the future to the area.
How long is that stretch of creek that they're opening to water?
I'm not sure the linear distance. I'll get back to you after this though.
Cool.
Yeah.
Or just like, as I don't have an image in my mind, is that like 300 feet or like a mile?
I would say it's probably
Looks
close
like
to 3,000 feet or so, at least.
3,000 to 4,000.
Straight line, probably longer if you went along the creek.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
What about if the airport is metering the water through their catch basin there, or that basin? What if we were to negotiate with them and have them meter it so it went through there slower, so it would be delayed more there? That provided additional retention of upstream water. And I know they're doing what they're supposed to do for themselves, but if it's never being used to capacity. I've watched that too, both sides of the road with Hoover, there's detention areas, and then, you'll see a foot of water there, maybe a few ducks. But that's it, and then much more capacity available there if we were to store some water there
Where does that water go?
in the same creek.
Which creek? The drakes, over by the drakes,
Yeah,
that creek?
So we're talking about this basin here, which,
and
I'm
on the other side of
assuming
Hoover too,
collects
there's a basin.
this,
Yeah,
and then
Right
there's
there.
these which don't, yeah,
I never see water in them.
I have to agree, I've never really seen water in them either.
That's, yeah, so this is the basin we're talking about right here.
Right.
East Fork is the green trees, and then this area is actually, it's a bypass overflow. So it's not a basin in itself, but basically once East Fork is high enough, water spills over here into this thing and can flow down. And there's a drain down here at the end where it can then be metered back into East Fork down here.
Can we change the metering on those things so they holds the water back a little longer?
Not for that one currently, because you'd have to basically build a berm here that would be, you'd be placing those properties down there at risk. But it's possible, but that's sort of why the consultant recommended looking at this side rather than this side, because this basically is already a designed facility. you'd be placing even more water there. This one currently doesn't really do much of anything. And it seems like the easier target for expansion, but it's a possible idea.
All right, almost done here. So the last thing looked at was increasing the channel capacity, which is the channel capacity from the confluence here of Tank Farm Creek and East Fork Creek, or East Fork of Slow Creek, and widening the channel down here, and kind of a mix of improvements to the overall flooding. And yeah, I think the conclusion of our consultant was that some kind of combination of increasing channel capacity and upstream storage would provide the most benefits. So lastly here, just what's next for East Fork area. There is the Caltrans site is going to be developed.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry, did we skip the downstream conveyance improvements?
Yeah, it had no effect. It didn't help at all. So they didn't even do a picture. So yeah, I think they said it might have made it worse.
On your guys' model for the channel size, did you take into account, was it just increasing the channel size, or is there a parameter for roughness that takes into account what the work that Freddie does on how that is affecting channel conveyance?
I'll answer the first part. The way they did the increased channel capacity modeling was moving the berm that's on the stables property. So the creek was wider.
Okay.
So the main creek channel was wider to see what the effect of that would be. I'll look over to Troy for the roughness, what they did on that.
Yeah, they didn't change the roughness in this alternative because the assumed roughness in the base case was basically with maintenance being done. Like a minimal channel, not with it completely blocked, like it may have been sometime in recent years.
So will you guys randomly or every year, how often would you guys be going through that creek like you guys started to this year?
I'm just good over here.
Every year?
Oh, okay.
I mean, at least, so once we get, so with context, once we get the big slug of all the dead stuff out of there, it should be just like minimal maintenance annually after that. So I would say we were there for 3 weeks. We got
Halfway,
important,
more than halfway.
Right
More than
about
halfway.
halfway, yeah, we're right past it probably.
Yeah.
but then coming up, we were doing a fuel reduction project from the confluence of East Fork and Slow Creek up to not quite where the bend is. So we got quite a ways. So there's just that middle section that needs to be done that wasn't touched last year.
This area, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So that'll be a big focus for this year, in addition to going back and making sure that the stuff that we did last year is still maintained and open. Stuff that's accumulated, we'll go ahead and get that out. But the big focus would be on that center section.
So if I'm able to keep goats in there every year before you guys can get in there, because if we wouldn't have done that, you would not gotten even a quarter of the way.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Yeah, I think.
Because I'm willing to work with that if you guys will come in every year, because I can honestly say there would have been no saving, not even the houses on the bottom with how that rain came this year and how it took them. If we would, I would have put the goats in and then they wouldn't have come.
Yeah.
There would have been no saving that thing.
Yeah, I think it's, so this was just the first year of the maintenance program pilot between the county and the city. And there was years and years and years and years and years and years of buildup there. So I don't know if it's a, after like the big sweep, if it's an annual or, or in every few years type thing. I don't, but I think knowing how, I think we all could agree that helped from the county side, I would say helped Buckley Road a lot,
No,
stay open and during the flooding, which is really important to us, and obviously helped a number of other people as well too. But we do have there are other areas just like yours that haven't had any, in the weird city county, this situation with the city county overlay, in weird geometries happens in a few other spots too. So I know, Freddie and I have targeted some other spots to do like a more detailed, first time in 20+ years type cleanup
yeah.
as well. So we're figuring out what that's gonna look like. I'd be
Is
a
there any
little
advantage-
hesitant to like make commitments,
No,
frankly, but
if
I think we know it helps, and that's really important.
Is
No.
there any advantage of going upstream a little bit further from from their bridge?
I think there would be an advantage, and I know Freddie's mentioned in the past about the future, once Avila Ranch is kind of going and, in the construction phase is ended, there's some systems in place to help Freddie get out on the city side more often.
They're developing a CFP for the development, which will provide funding, additional funding to do work on that specific portion right there.
Okay, how about?
But just to be clear, the part is this, where
Yeah.
this area here.
How about the East Fork section down below
And so then I would prefer that we get the slope that we didn't get downstream first. The hill that's on the east side of you by the second bridge,
Yeah,
it seems like there's a little creek or drainage
Yeah,
that
that
comes
runs
around that.
through the dog boarding facility.
So I think that contributes quite a bit to the flooding of the stables themselves, in addition to East Fork, I think, we're topping. But we should look at that one more, because you've already got the Arizona crossing there to protect against that flow. But that would be my recommendation, is we get the middle slug out so that we've got that continued conveyance all the way through from Buckley down to the confluence. Still looking at if there's big debris jams on the pet resort property, we can, take those out. But like I said, my preference would be that we focus on getting that last slug.
I'm just thinking there's a lot of debris up there that might come down and mess up what you've already done.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can speak to
and
that.
The city at the end of us, the city yard, property at the end, in my cow pastures. That, like I went in there the other day, I was finally able to get back there, and it's really, really congested in there, really, really bad.
Yeah. So we didn't get to the
No,
turn, so that's.
Yeah.
That's another portion.
And we're Kim's neighbor. I can say for our property that luckily everything we've built and developed is, even in your models, is all nicely nestled around the floodplain, nothing really at risk for us. But I'm just looking at my creek and I'm like, this is all gonna go Kim's way next big storm. And it's not gonna hurt us, it's gonna hurt her. So we would love to invite you onto the property to do any clearing you need to for Buckley Stable sake.
Yep.
thank you.
All right. Well, the last couple of things we know what's going on. We already hit my third bullet point. I was going to talk about the maintenance moving forward. So good discussion there. Lastly, we know, so again, we have these model files now, very detailed. Troy can confirm we have or will be providing them to Caltrans for their site development here, as well as Avila Ranch for designing. They're completing their Buckley Road widening and the bike trail along Buckley, which includes a bridge over Tank Farm Creek. So these are just a few of the things we know what's coming next for East Fork and how this work is going to continue to help others.
Can I make another comment about our creek too?
Of course.
I want to let everyone know too that we're trying to communicate with the CCC group who works with First Roots Farm, which operates on our property,
Mhm.
to do some creek cleanup. They said they had a group that would be willing to do that. So we can look outside, find other groups who can tackle different sections. I was wondering if you would want to be involved in strategizing about where we would have this group come and do the work.
I'm sorry, which group did you say?
CCC, the Cs.
Okay, because that's who we had come out last year.
I'm not sure if it's the same contact, but the farm on our property has been using them for various community service stuff with the farm, and they approached us and offered to do creek cleanup
but what part of the creek do I send them to, that kind of thing.
So when.
Yeah, we should connect.
Yeah, we need a site visit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's get out there and then whichever contact you have for the Cs, let me know.
Yeah,
And we'll figure out if we're talking about the same person.
great. Yeah, I just want to get the most bang for our buck with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there could be some, there's obviously environmental, permits and regulations about going in, but that's one of the things that, the EIR and water management plan that we have, set up. So I think there's a way we could fold that in to what we have going. So that's what I want to clarify for you, so you don't get
100%,
any trouble for being out in the creek or anything like that. So let me make a note of that real quick. All right, so I think with that, I'll open up for any other questions. And that concludes our presentation on the study.
I have a couple questions. The original plan for the study of the East Fork was determined was Matchell and Buckley flooding because of the East Fork, or was the rain flowing through Apple Ranch coming that direction?
Mhm.
So did you determine if the East Fork is what backs up and floods Buckley? Because I just didn't hear that.
I'd say yes.
Yes, so although the direction of flow, there might still be flow, if you're looking and watching Buckley, water might be going down south. The reason for it is East Fork. East Fork's backing up and
So it
the
is-
water coming down tank farms is like hitting, the tailwater there.
Okay.
So it is East Fork backing up.
Okay, so you did determine that. Okay, then Freddie, you told me last time there was that big pipe that Apple Ranch has from their pump. They have that big reservoir and they have a big pumping station, then the pipe snakes across the bike path and disappears. Did you ever find out where it's going?
No.
Okay. I mean, what the assumption is, it's going into another retention basin that we can't see. And then I'm assuming they're feeding it into the creek just slowly. I mean, that's, I don't know.
Yeah, the outfall from Apple Ranch is required by the development to be metered to pre-existing development conditions. So the waterway management plan, the drainage design manual requires that the development and the study of that development design facilities to basically outfall in certain rain conditions to pre-existing conditions, or not more than significant pre-existing conditions. So the size of those ponds and the metered outfall to the creek is sized for that pre-development condition. So whatever runoff was coming in the pre-development is being based on the development. They've sized those facilities so that those ponds fill up and they overspill to the pre-existing condition, if that makes sense.
Well, we told them, I've been involved with the Apple Ranch from the beginning, and we told them it was the water table was like 3 feet there. So your reservoirs can fill up and the water is just gonna sit there. And sure enough, that's what happened. So now they're pumping it back somewhere. And I heard,
I'm not familiar with the pumping. It should.
well, you look at this pipe is this big.
Yeah, they're pumping.
When we walked out there, there is some sort of like pumping system that wasn't part of the original drainage plan. It must be a temporary construction thing, but I think that's what she's talking about.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
just move it from pond to pond.
Yeah, that's what we think. We think there's another pond way back there that we can't see.
I'll check it out.
All right, my last question is, there is a big drain at the end of runway 7 at the corner of Buckley and Santa Fe. There's a big culvert and it disappears. Where's Santa Fe?
Here's Santa Fe, right here.
Okay, but the other side of Santa Fe. There's a short Santa Fe to Buckley. Okay, there's a drain pipe right there at the corner. Where does that go?
Doesn't go that
It
way.
looks like it goes right here.
I cannot figure out where that goes. Because this is now, that is
Does look like
all,
it goes like that.
That's all farm.
Tally Farms is growing
got it all
crops
thawed
there.
up and irrigated,
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
got a well in there.
So you don't see a creek on the other side, so it's like, where's that water going?
I mean, it looks like it's trenched there to me, but,
Anyway, it's just a question. I just thought I run by there and I look at it and I go, where's that water going? Straight down.
interesting. All right. Any other questions? I guess I'll let you do that.
That's a good questions. There is a creek that flows out under Hoover that comes from the end of that runway. There's a creek right through here that runs from the end of that where they did all that grading for the runway. And this is all high up in here, so this might go this way.
Yeah.
Underneath the runway. Come out, there's a low spot back in there on Hoover. Right there.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, one of the reasons I was even thinking about it is you guys have all heard about PFAS, I assume. What we're dealing with out by the airport with PFAS in our wells, groundwater, as a result of the fire retardant that they apparently used to practice, we think, at the end of runway 7. And so we're actually going to a water quality board meeting, Wayne and I have 4. But so we're like following the water. Where's PFAS going? And if it was in that area, it could continue on. I mean, all the water heads out to Avila, right?
Well, John Drake's farm is right at the end of that culvert, like,
And they
where I think
have
it goes, in,
PFAS.
and he's got a problem too.
And so does somebody on Esperanza.
Mhm.
They got PFAS.
Okay, that one comes from that area, so that all that tank farm area might be affected by it.
Yeah, so it's really, when you look at this whole PFAS thing, it's really interesting to look at all the creeks and to try to figure out where it went and how did it get there. So,
Okay, are we, what kind of action do you want us to take on this now?
But it's basically receive and file. I think that was a,
So we have a final report that it's done, it's gonna be put in the file. And is there any action that we want to have the committee, do we want to recommend that there's something done with this report now? That's our decision, I think. The staff has done what we asked them to do, they've done the study. So, committee, this is our job now. Where do we go with this? Just receive and file it, or do we want to ask the county staff to do something with it?
Well, I mean, it sounds like the only thing we can ask the county to do is to raise Buckley Road and raise the bridges.
Yeah.
And
Which doesn't
Is
have
there-
really much effect for the cost.
Is there action that we should recommend or consider recommending around the additional recommended from reports for additional storage areas, or is that gonna happen regardless?
say that again?
The areas that they were talking about, that the report recommended potentially adding storage capacity along the creek. This isn't the right, this is the right map.
oh,
Like along the,
you're talking about
The
like this
dog
one.
leg.
yeah, that, should we be looking at that for future action or? Or is
Well,
that not, I'm new on this.
I-
committee,
I-
so is
yeah,
that
yeah,
not
yeah,
part of
well,
the-
Continuing maintenance seems like a recommendation that we can actively proceed with and
Okay.
improve upon prior maintenance, because it's a program we're working on. I think the options to look at those other basins, whether or not that's feasible, increase the storage adjacent to the report, whether or not that's a yes or no. I mean, just something from that. I think that was the main comment that changes some of that recommendation for detention storage that perhaps is something to look at that reduces costs. But
I guess I thought that
Costs
the
are-
discussion included moving forward to look at putting in that dog leg thing up there by Santa Fe. And I mean, it's just saying that, oh, somebody thought about that and, you know, that's something that could happen. Is that as far as this goes? Or was it really making some recommendations in the sense that this would make a difference? And isn't that what we looked at, taking this study forward, moving forward with some things that will make a difference?
Well, the study was intended to help us understand why we were getting flooding there.
Okay, yeah.
And so we
that's
found
right.
that out now. And it's looked at various options to address that flooding. And my reading of the report says there really isn't anything that's cost effective in doing that. Other than protecting, doing what you can with the knowledge we have of that area. It's like raising the Santa Fe Bridge. That would take, or the Buckley Bridge at that One Creek. That would raise that area up and it would never flood then, because the water just is only gonna get so high, it's back watering. And helping the property owners along there understand what the flooding situation is, so they can use their property in ways that where they won't be hurt as much by the flooding. They can work with it. You know, understanding it.
Now, I agree, my reading of it was that this area is gonna flood,
Yeah,
just like, you know, a lot of other places around San Luis Obispo, they're gonna flood. That's just the way it is. You got these little old creeks and a lot of water comes down at once and Panhandle, and they're just gonna have floods, and that's the way it is. But I don't know if you need a motion to say that, but if so, I will say that I move that we recommend the city and county.
Can I suggest something?
continue-
can I suggest something before you say that?
Yeah, sure.
I would rather say that we take this information, we say, oh, this justifies a regular maintenance program in this area. And we should work with the property owners to help keep their creeks as open as we can.
That's the motion right there.
And
That's what I
and
would
from there
get.
on out, provide the information to the city and the county. So if they choose to try to do something there, they have this information to work with.
I agree with that. That's where I was gonna go, to look
Okay.
at ongoing maintenance, you know, given the new information we have. And sharing the information with involved property owners.
What do you as property owners think about that? I mean, we
But
can't solve the
maintenance part
problem.
of it, I mean, what it is, I mean, I hate saying that. So all of San Luis is, look around, there's mountains all the way around us. We're in a flood zone. I'm at the butt end of it, unfortunately, but I would rather see you guys out there and work with you guys on helping us keep that clean out so that the water can go smoothly.
So it works as good
And
as,
then I'm
yeah.
not having as much backup. I can handle the water coming. I don't care. And I don't even care if it's there for 4, 5, 6 hours and I'm locked in there. I don't care, as long as it's not doing so much damage that I have to replace my full fording facility or horses are in danger. And that's my biggest thing, and being able to stay open. On
Also,
a ranch that's been there, that's been a ranch for what, over 100 years, you know? So I would rather work with somebody and have them do that than try to do something that's just gonna maybe not work, not change anything, or divert water somewhere else to another path, or it's just, I mean, it's just like that. That's why we're not doing our bridge 2 feet taller like the construction person wants us to. Because the ramps to that bridge, I'm gonna have to almost make my driveway, probably going from my bridge to Buckley Road. Will almost have to go up 5, 6 feet. Where's that water gonna go? It's gonna divert it somewhere else. Then on my inside of my property, on the other side, I'm gonna have to build up my little driveway so that my trucks, trailers, anything get in with my other bridge, which is gonna raise that 3 feet of cement. Where's that water gonna go? And then what's it gonna do to me? And they won't let me put culverts in because then they say that moves water to a piece of property that shouldn't be, it's not its natural flow, which it's its natural flow, but that's why we're not raising my first bridge now, unfortunately. Because I'm scared of where that water will get diverted and do more damage to me than word it's doing now.
Kim, would you comment, it's the comment you made to me that there's, I don't know what you called it, tar or something in your creek that was never there before?
I don't remember seeing, I was just showing Freddie pictures of it, and he says it's from the oil field, the tank farm.
So it's
Tank
coming
farm
down?
exploded. So we saw it
During from the explosion, like 100 years ago.
Right, right.
Yeah.
April 26th.
We got the
Rose
anniversary.
McKean wrote about that in her books and tells us all about how it got there. She saw it. She lived in that farmhouse there.
But Kim said this is new.
No,
I
it's
don't
not.
remember seeing it.
No, it's all aged
Some of it-
tar.
It's
Some of
exposed.
hard, and some of it's just like you can hit it and it's
Mhm.
still gushy kind of in the inside, but there's a crust over it, some of it,
Mhm.
but some of it's petrified.
Yeah, no,
But-
You can see it now
It's been
because
out
we cleared
there
it out.
years ago. I wandered through that with people and, you know, there are places where there was still cooling oil. That's why the north of Tank Farm had 90,000 square feet of netting over some of the wetlands there to keep ducks out. 'Cause they got oiled ducks going in there and wild birds in there. So they put 90,000 square feet of netting over that whole area so they couldn't get into the wetlands in certain areas. And then those basins on the south of Tank Farm, same thing. There's old weathered burned oil as well as cooling oil, and it's all gonna break apart. I mean, every time somebody gets in there, moving the earth now, and then it's loosened up, and they're remediating it, so everything's broken up, and it'll flow out and move around, yeah.
So
It's oil tank farm out there.
that's something, so I got added to a Chevron remediation. I don't know if it's the same thing you guys are involved with. I'm assuming the CERT, whatever. So that could be a potential problem with it being under the bridge for Tank Farm Creek on your property.
Mhm.
Because now the creek can't scour, can't size.
Mhm.
And this is like one of the only times I will say, I wish that creek would have sized. But it can't because it's like cemented in. So legacy issues, is something to ask the question about.
Mhm.
You know, because I mean, just for capacity, you know, typically what we're seeing is the creeks are incising dramatically, which we need to stop or at least start upgrading, because we're starting to see problems with infrastructure and bank failures and stuff like that. And so now we want that creek, we want Tank Farm Creek to incise so that there's more capacity in the bridge, but it can't because of all that tar and product that's there. So just throwing it out there. Super easy project to do, right? But you know, I mean, it's just another question, especially as Tank Farm is as Chevron is going through the remediation. If there's impacts from the property, conceivably, we could have a conversation.
That sounds like it's beyond what we're doing here today, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, for those who don't know the history, I forget the exact number, something like 8 million gallons or something like that were in tanks out there. Lightning struck it in April 1926. It created its own tornadoes and whirlwinds. It picked up a house with people in it, slammed it down, killed the people. The oil ran burning to the creek, and burning oil ran all the way to Avila. So that creek itself will have residue all everywhere. I mean, that had burned for 2 weeks or something. I forget. I have all the paperwork, but that was years ago when I studied it. But it was massive tank farm there. It was a massive tank farm. And once lightning struck it, the whole thing blew up, and whirlwinds and fires.
And they found
and-
pieces miles away of
Yeah,
tanks.
Yeah,
Right,
and fires, and it's still,
Very spectacular.
I think there's actually footage on YouTube,
Mhm.
to
probably,
be
yeah.
honest, so.
I'm not gonna look for that right now, though.
No.
Okay, well, let's see,
Sidebar.
we have a motion from our member here.
Yes, do you want to clarify it, or shall I?
You clarify.
Okay, well, I move that we receive the presentation and continue with any vegetation and debris maintenance in the area that we can schedule in the future.
Does that include reviewing budget yearly for those sorts of programs?
Budget always has to be
Yeah.
included, but you know, you
So,
can't do it without a budget. Yeah, so
So, yeah.
that's a given.
And I think we should also refer this report to the city and county for their uses,
And to,
encourage them to use it.
and to make the report known and available to the public as well.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion passed. Good job. Thank you for getting it done.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Oh, gosh, I know.
Yeah.
I can move on to the next embarrassing thing, but this one was pretty embarrassing, so.
Okay. Item number
Who's
5.
doing the minutes on this meeting?
Me and Joey's team.
I came in just after the roll call, so.
Yeah, I got you as absent on the first one. And then you were here for the officer nominee elections.
I came in just at that, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to be absent for that or you want to have voted yes?
I'll be absent because I missed the conversation.
Okay. That's how I noted
I
it.
came in
So
right at.
perfect.
Item number 4.
Okay, perfect.
Item 5, ongoing updates. I hear a high bypass project.
Yeah.
Chelsea Moore, I'm supervising civil engineer. We've made some progress with Mid-High Garrett bypass. For those of you who don't know about the project, it's a creek project, San Luis Obispo Creek between Marsh and Madonna to improve flooding capacity in that stretch, including several bypass channels and creek bank improvements and sediment removal along the channel. Been working with county staff to get secure permits for the project, and we do have some additional information we submitted to Army Corps of Engineers, including additional modeling per their request, and are working on a draft agreement with California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And the Regional Water Quality Control Board permit was received. So the city's working on securing the additional easements that we need for the project. We have 3 offer letters out, received some correspondence back, and I'm meeting with City Attorney's Office next week to continue those negotiations. As well as we have 3 more offer packages in review with City Attorney's Office and several other temporary construction easements that we need to secure. The consultant team's working hard to get the permits, get the plans ready to submit for grading permits. Those are expected to be delivered late April and be in for city review in May. After that, we'll be continuing with securing our permits and easements and hoping to have this project advertising for construction later this year for a project in 2024.
Yes, please. Tell me what PS&E is. PS&E revisions. What is that?
Yeah, it stands for plans, specifications, and estimates. So we have received working on updating those to about a 95% review. The plans will get submitted for, the plans and special provisions will get submitted for our grading permit. The estimate is so that we can hopefully have a good number to go out to bid with for the contractors.
Okay, thank you. And then another question. I'm a little confused when we talk about this project, the Mid-High Garrett bypass project, going from Marsh to Madonna, because my understanding all along this whole time has been we're just looking at this one bypass by Bianchi Lane,
Chelsea,
not all the way down to Madonna. And if I'm wrong, then I have more issues because down just south of South Street, the creek is now undercutting and coming in and cutting and sloughing off the banks where people have private property because the creek has changed. So Are we just talking about this one bypass project now here?
There's components of the project along that whole stretch, so that's kind of our limits to gauge just how big this project is. I've walked the corridor with Freddie a few times. We're doing improvements along the creek in that stretch, so there are 2 bypass channels, but there is also sediment removal and creek clearing throughout the whole stretch, including a lot of tree removals, and that's why we're getting all our permits. There's also at Marsh Street at the top, there's silt removal, part of the regular Zone 9 silt removal program. And then the Bianchi Lane Bridge replacement is another segment, but we go all the way down to Madonna with our creek cleanup. Freddie wants to jump in.
So basically, a quick overview. So Marsh Street Bridge right here, we're gonna be doing silt removal and taking out the last sycamore that we didn't take out this year, just to have a more direct entrance for the creek to go underneath the bridge. So right now, the creek is kind of forced to the east, just because that sediment bar is stabilized right upstream of the center barrel. We're gonna be doing flood benching here, raising the Bianchi Lane Bridge. First bypass comes across Bianchi open space. Second bypass comes across the bulb here. So that will help with the issues at South Street, like you were talking about. Behind Hayward Lumber, doing another we'll continue to do, vegetation management down here as well. But this section here, as far as the Menhagar bypass project goes, we don't have anything like in that for that specific location. But with the eucalyptus trees at the backside of the Caltrans property, they're city trees, it's awesome. Continue to manage those trees just for capacity. We had one go down in the January storm, which backed up water as well. So there was a bunch of challenges in that section there, which we've helped to improve.
Okay, so I know that when we met out there a few years ago, Dave Romero was still on the committee, and we met out there, we just went to the Bianchi Lane Bridge, and we looked at the eucalyptus there and the trees that had to be taken out for that bypass and moving the bridge, and talked about property exchange with the Madonnas. But I don't remember ever having any discussions about south of South Street there, that whole area below via Motors and from that part as being part of this project somehow or other. I thought that these projects were bifurcated, or we're going to do that later. So are we looking at doing both those bypasses at the same time there?
Correct.
We are. That's all one project. Okay, because that was confusing, because I know people who have gotten letters saying they're going to start the project down there by South Street and below. But that brings up one more thing I wanted to ask about, please. I have no idea if this is at all feasible, but one of the people, a couple of the people I've talked with over there are environmentally minded, if you will, and see this kind of a project coming in and having to dig up huge amounts of really fine silt, you called it, or topsoil, and then where does that go? Is it just dumped? These people seem to think that that's valuable, and that people who have land would want to buy that, would pay money to have that soil. Is there any possibility in a construction project like that where people who want soil will put back their trucks in there and haul it off instead of, I mean, is that
For the bypass channels or?
Yeah, the bypass channels, all that stuff, it's I'm being told is very fine topsoil quality stuff.
Yeah, so if the city would hire a contractor, how the contractor chooses to offload that material is up to them. They can make contracts on their own with developers or with private properties or other people who have storage for that soil to purchase that from them. That'll actually reduce their costs, lower the bid prices, but that's something that the contractors themselves would work out, not something that the city would would coordinate or manage on.
Yeah, but there's no
contract
way
side.
that we're gonna get the public involved in knowing that that this topsoil is available. If the contractor just does whatever he wants, he's just gonna do the most expedient thing, like he always did, dump it on Dan Duvall's place or something, you know?
They do have to disclose to the city and make sure they're dumping it legally, so we
Yes.
do require them to tell us where their haul off is going. But we can't control as part of the project that they make it available for purchase. So it is up to the contractor. So the one that wins the bid will, decide where they, what they do with the top.
That's what I figure, that's normal process.
Yeah, there's value in the soil, like you say, so
Yeah.
that those that want to purchase it, if it's closer and easier to deliver to somebody who's willing to pay for it, then that reduces contractors' costs.
Yeah, or if the
Incentivizes.
contractors could dig it and put it in people's trucks to start with, in their own dump trucks, they don't have to transfer it twice, but keep the contractors' costs even down more if they weren't the ones who had to haul it off, that there was a posting out there. We're gonna be digging this stuff up, you wanna back your trucks in, and we'll sell it to you, no,
You can't do
that's too
that.
complicated, doesn't
Yeah, that would be a liability.
Even Wayne is shaking his head.
Liability.
But all this time for that project that we worked on. Isn't that?
Which one?
I've been on the committee too long.
You did bring up another note, though. We did send out another letter to every property along that stretch, excluding Caltrans, because we're gonna work with them separately. But just notifying them once again of the project with new contact information, because we did hire another engineer with the city that's helping coordinate some of these efforts. So
There are
they're,
26
we just got
properties.
those.
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, so a lot of the property lines extend into the middle of the creek channel. Most property owners don't know that,
One even goes across the creek. I think.
Yeah.
The Travelers, I think, goes across the creek.
So even though property owners themselves can't get in there without permits, it's still their property, and so we have to get access to private property and via. Typically, we'll do it with right of entry, so sign letter, hey, we're gonna go in there, we're gonna, remove some vegetation, et cetera, but this is such a substantial project. There's also mitigation plantings on those private properties, so we're removing trees, but we're putting trees back at 2 to 1 with native species, so they're gonna be temporarily irrigated, so we need the rights to get into the properties over I think it's a 5-year mitigation planting period.
So where the creek bends there just below South Street, and then it comes in to the east and really takes out, it has been taking out their banks along there.
This will help that.
This will help
slow the
that.
velocity through there, so.
Okay, and turn the creek back away from the direction of going towards.
Like Wayne said, it'll reduce velocity. It's the bypass channel that comes through the bowl, the upland property there. When that gets activated, it'll take some of the velocity, which is currently cutting and undermining the stacked concrete and all the other unfortunate stuff that's in there right now. It'll reduce the velocity going through there because now it's got another outlet for water to go through.
The problem with that is that the piece just upstream from there where this velocity is slowed down there is going to be increased upstream because the water level is going to drop and it's going to flush it through those tight spots. And they will see some erosion there maybe.
They've been seeing erosion.
I've seen that in other projects we've done.
Yeah, so where
That's
the
true.
bypasses connect to the creek on either end, there's going to be rock slope protective features to minimize
Gotta do
the
something.
likelihood of erosion and vegetative. So we'll stick some tree logs into the rock slopes and kind of make it more natural up to it. But
You'd all be interested to know there's a set of plans for this project signed by me in the files of the city.
Anything goes wrong, we have to.
Wayne, signed by Wayne Peterson.
And then another note on Bianchi Bridge. So that bridge is structurally deficient. There was a fire underneath it. We got a notification from Caltrans that one of the stringers is, in bad shape. So part of that bridge is actually closed to traffic. It's a very narrow bridge, but
You know the history of that bridge, don't you?
it was relocated from.
It's off from Elks Lane. It used to be the narrow gauge railroad track.
Okay.
bridge.
Yeah, and we did the historical study for the EIR for this project about that bridge. But yeah, that'll be removed. The span will be doubled there because that's where the bypass channel connects. So
And are we still planning to angle it and take it towards the Madonna property, that corner where they're still doing the property exchange with that?
We're probably putting it in the right of way now.
It'll go in the actual right of way.
yeah, it actually crosses property.
It's not in the right of way right now.
Right, yeah, so it does change the angle, I think is towards the Madonna's property, in that building. But it's a 60-foot span will be a 120-foot span. So it's a bridge replacement project as well.
Very good. Any other questions regarding this project? Next one is creek maintenance, item B.
Turn over to Freddie.
Creek maintenance, so we've had, let's see, early February last meeting, so we've had 2 atmospheric rivers since then. So creek maintenance has been going on pretty much consistently since then. After the February storm, another portion of Sandwich Drive capped off, undermined the sidewalk, so we took emergency measures to put in riprap at the toe of the slope until we could get more permanent fix identified. We've since identified that and did the clearing and grubbing in advance of that work. So it's going to be a 350-foot long post and beam wall with a concrete face on it, painted and sculpted, with riprap at the bottom of that just to stabilize that whole bank there. So there's the 4-inch medium pressure gas line, 2 oil lines on the creek side of San Luis Drive, the 10-inch high pressure gas lines on the other side. So I don't think we're going to be impacting that, but we're moving forward. We should be, if the schedule holds, we'll be breaking ground May 1 on that emergency project to stabilize that whole bank there. And then we've got 10 other high priority emergency projects. So pretty much all of the creek behind Elks Lodge. So from the cemetery down to Elks Lane, we have a requirement in the easement to control erosion from the San Luis Obispo Creek. So we're looking at that one as well. For Fimo Creek on the golf course, we suffered some more bank failures there, and then flooding down between LOVR and the lake. So we're looking at another huge emergency project down there to realign where Fimo Creek goes into the lake. So right now it makes 3 90-degree turns, and creeks don't like to do that. So we're looking at pushing straight through into the lake to help with conveyance and sediment transport. That's the problem that we're seeing right now, is that the sediment accumulation. So basically, if the sediment is accumulated here, the storm drain outfalls are about 2 feet below that. So it doesn't drain the street. So we're seeing flooding along Ocean Air. Even with some emergency clearance of the storm drain outfalls, it still can help the problem. So we're in the works on developing that project right now. And so those 11 emergency projects should be completed this year, if all goes well. But basically advancing 20 years worth of deferred maintenance in the next 2 years. So the watershed's going to be transformed. So we'll continue to do maintenance on places that aren't improved, where we do have mitigation plantings. Something to talk about is the maintenance of those projects. So there's going to be a lot going on, like very, very soon. Stay tuned.
Kind of realignment of Fimo Creek is up in the golf course.
Downstream. So right as it comes into Laguna Lake.
Mhm.
Have to stay away there.
To the lake.
Then after, right before it.
Makes 3 90-degree turns.
It does like it does a,
Wait a minute,
Kind of meanders behind the houses. Until it gets.
Coming close and eating away the backyard of one house, it makes a 90-degree turn and comes back to the back of Sean's house, and it's eating away the back of their property. Goes straight down towards the lake and then heads west, and then has to wrap all the way around to get out underneath Madonna Road. It's extremely problematic. And then there's 2 palm trees, one of which is in the channel. It fell, I think, during the January storm. Another one is perched for imminent delivery to the channel. and I don't have a way to get to them easily.
Didn't that bypass used to go straight down to the creek, but then there's so much silt buildup that there's islands and all? Is that what you're talking about, moving around those islands that are built up out there?
Not in the middle of
creek
the
is-
lake.
Not in the middle of the lake. I'm talking about along the lake side, which is now way expanded due
Yep.
to all of this, and it's all the growth in it. Shouldn't we just clear up that silt and open up the mouth again the way it used to be? I mean, there didn't used to be all that stuff there. It used to be a straight through channel, open into the lake, and now it's all filled in and grown up and islands. And now you're telling me there's all these creeks going
So-
through there? That just seems ridiculous.
So if we wanted to do it like it was, then we would have to get rid of the Madonna, the Madonna Shopping Center, because Perfume Creek never went into Laguna Lake historically.
Well, no, it went by the gas station,
Exactly.
and that was, never came across
So-
into the lake.
Exactly. So when they dredged the Perfume Arm up to LOVR, you used to be able to take a sailboat up to LOVR.
Yeah.
And so now that is all filled in with sediment. And now the creek is meandering through there. Unfortunately, it's made 390-degree turns before it gets to the lake itself.
Because the lake is so far away, now it's all silted in.
So all these
Right.
problems are between LVR and the lake,
Correct.
Yes,
okay, in that sediment area that we keep dredging out.
usually we just dredge the main creek itself from the LOVR
LOVR.
down, but never have dredged all the
So
what's
we've got-
built islands now, that's just.
So the creek is filled in way down there, so outside of our typical maintenance area. So we're looking at just pushing straight through, removing that stuff, and then pushing straight through to get better conveyance and sediment transport through that section there.
Okay.
Now, does the sediment come from above the city, out of the hills, or is it-
Yeah,
should there be a sediment basin up in those areas and catch it up there before it even gets down there?
We might be able to look at a basin on the Irish Hills property or someplace adjacent. There's, the Perfumo Arm is the best place to remove sediment currently, just because it flattens out. Like we've talked about, that's where everything's going to accumulate. And having access right off of LOVR, it's a really nice site. Here again, my preference would be to make that site bigger so that we have more ability to remove more sediment. Because right now we're confined to 600 feet of creek from LOVR down. The other problematic factor is if there's creek flow, our permits don't allow us to be in there. So that's why we're looking at an emergency permit this year, because likely there's going to be water later in the year when we go to do that project. So instead of trying to work with the agencies on amending our permit, which could take some time, we're seeing this as an emergency. We need to get in there. There,
Some of it, the urgency around, is there possibility of reimbursement for
Yes.
some of this if we do it?
correct, because if we don't do anything, we could experience more flooding, like we saw in the February and the March storms. So that's the other thing, is since we have that disaster declaration, trying to work in as many projects as possible for the greater community protection.
And you can kind of see the 90-degree turns on Google.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of it's covered by trees and shrubbery and stuff, but you can see a couple of them right at the end there as it gets close to them.
it's pretty problematic.
Any more questions about creek maintenance? That's a big question. Rundown of the movie.
Well, we finally have our permits in place for removing the Arundel at the Los Osos Valley Road, San Luis Creek interchange, which is taking quite a while to get lined up. So that'll be a main focus of our work this year. Is taking care of that. We have a $25,000 supplemental grant with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And what's nice about that is then they're doing all of the biological things that should be passed for. And Fred, we tried to get in there before and get something up. So we know, at this CCC schedule, that we should move forward with that, probably September. Yeah, exciting year, been wanting to get in there.
And depending on if you're able to get all of it or not, we're still looking at working with the agencies for mitigation opportunities for our impacts from the creek maintenance that we've done subsequent to the storms. So we will continue to talk.
Yeah, that'll be nice, because all we're doing is killing it, but we're not investigating.
We have a lot of work to do. So. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get that.
Thank you. See that being done. Okay, any other questions about Arundel? No questions. Item 6, public comment. Ask you about something we didn't talk about today, relevant to flood control. No comments?
Well, the previous meeting, I brought up an issue with the Avila Ranch development with added soil from when they did the Buckley extension. I was wondering if that was part of the study or did it come too late? We were asking, did that change in topography affect anything about the floodplain or anything like that?
Yeah, they're like, I believe it's temporary stockpiling that's along Buckley.
When we met last, we weren't sure if that was temporary or what the status of that was. I didn't know if there was any follow-up or any plan on that.
I don't have it. That would, I think, be a city thing. It's
Yeah.
the stockpiling.
So I pinged my inspector out there to talk about the pipe and where water is being moved to. I'll put this on our meeting agenda as well.
Yeah, like Wayne mentioned, they've refilled the potholes there, which is great, but I think that soil may have contributed to the potholes and the flooding. So it's that area where they've filled in asphalt. That's kind of the area I'm talking about.
The big top oil,
Yeah,
temporary or not.
we'll find out.
But yeah, so I'll figure out about the stockpile too.
Thank you.
And in talking with the developer, he mentioned to us about the value of soil banking. Soil was a big commodity for them as far as their economics, and they could take and store a lot of soil there and then sell it to other developers while they're doing their project. So I mean, who knows what's going on?
Well, ostensibly, the San Luis Ranch was doing the same thing with their class 1 prime ag soil that they were gonna build over, and they were supposedly stockpiling that too. Maybe they put it out on Avila Ranch. Who knows?
That's what we're talking about, Avila Ranch.
Well, I know, but I was talking about the San Luis Ranch
Oh, yeah.
and the stockpiling of their class 1 prime ag land.
Okay, future agenda items. Do you have any items you want to talk about now? If you come up with ideas that you have in the future, just call Brendan or me, we'll try to get them on for future ideas. But if you have any right now. No. Sounds quiet. I guess we must be at the end of our meeting, so without any no one's complaint, we'll adjourn.
Thank you, good meeting you.